All right, of course, this heat wave just starting up, but we could be in for one of the hottest days in the last decade, as you just heard Amber say. Joining us this morning is Chad Vesser, Emergency Management Officer with Michigan 211. It is a hotline that you have access to at any time. It'll help you connect with a live specialist to lay out resources available. Chad, we appreciate your time this morning. So let's talk about the services that 211 provides. I know I just kind of gave a little bit of a snippet there, but walk us through what you guys can help us do during a heat wave.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate the time. It's as simple as what you said. It is, you call 211 just like you do any 111 service, like 911 or 411. You call us. We have a live trained human being on the other end of the line, and we kind of walk you through resources. Some people can handle, the heat themselves. They've got air conditioning. They've got resources to manage, the heat. But some people don't, especially vulnerable populations. If you're a little bit older, you don't have reliable transportation, it's getting too hot in your house and you don't have AC, and we'll help you find a cooling center. We can help you find transportation and a host of other resources behind that, too.
Yeah, that's really good to know that you guys are just one call, or even some other methods that we can get to you guys, whether that be a text or maybe chat with somebody online. Explain how we can get to you in those ways as well.
Yeah, 898-211 is the text line that you can use. You can also just search up like MI211 for the state of Michigan, mi211.org. So you can jump on our website as well and kind of like walk through some of the resources that are available. Not only are we a call center, but we do a lot of support when it comes to identifying, those resources, those cooling centers, those kinds of things kind of pop up and go away pretty quickly in a community. So we do a lot of work to try to verify, valid information in a day of like information overload. If you want to talk to somebody, if you want to find clean, good info, we are a place to help support that.
Absolutely. And we are going to be looking at some pretty hot weather into these next couple of days, but we're no stranger to this at this point in the season at very least. So have you seen a spike in calls that are related to heat recently?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, there's a slow trickle up when the heat rises. 211 for disasters or emergencies in general. Earlier this year we had a lot of rain, a lot of floods. You'll always see a fairly decent tick up in calls, and a lot of it is just sometimes people if you're hot and you get a little flustered, it's hard to work through problem solving too. So it's a good way to just kind of like work through those problems and issues, even beyond the heat too. So for sure, we're seeing a fair amount of calls. Nothing crazy right now. We've got a lot of support on our side of the aisle here. So it's hopefully the heat will break here pretty soon. But we're always here 24/7.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You never know when we get a Michigan summer, whether it's going to be, 70 and sunny or whether it's going to be 95 and 85% humidity. I want to ask, you mentioned the resources that you guys have there, fielding calls, chatting with folks there. What does that look like? Do you guys staff up extra when we get to these more extreme weather weeks, or how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, we can. So 7 centers that cover the state of Michigan regionally, and they back each other up. And we also have backups even outside of the state. It's a 211 network is nationwide. So, there's layers that come in behind our center if certain states are experiencing extreme weather. We support each other that way. We've got a fairly robust staff when it comes to Michigan. So we do a pretty good job of handling surges and calls as is. So we're fortunate to be here in Michigan and to have that kind of resource and those people on the other end of the line.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are calling to ask about cooling centers. I'm sure there's quite a few other things too, but what are some resources that are available that maybe people aren't utilizing nearly as much as you think could be really helpful to them?
Yeah, I mean, you can go through the list, whether you're looking for trying to find clothing, whether you're finding, if you're struggling to find formula or support for your baby, if you've got a small child at your house. I mentioned transportation. It's a health and human services hotline. I know the last time I checked it, it's in the thousands of resources. There's sites, there's programs, there's eligibility. It gets confusing, right? And so you can kind of like go through the list of the things that you might be struggling with. You don't have to do it alone. There are other people they're literally there on the other end of the line to talk to you, to problem solve, to walk through those issues and kind of find, some of those, I mentioned transportation. People don't realize that, I know there's a cooling center. I can't get there. There are ways to solve some problems, and talking to somebody else who's trained to do it helps.
Yeah, what would you say is, especially when we have some of these more weather-related 211 calls, what would you say is the most utilized resource that you guys provide at 211?
Most utilized resource, really, in times of heat. We mentioned it, and not to overuse the idea of the cooling center and finding shelter, whether it's hot or cold. We talked about Michigan, whether it's really really cold weather and you need a warming a place to get warm, or it's really really hot and you need a place to get cooled down. That's usually what we see. People will ask for air conditioners, fans, ice. There's a host of things and resources that are very heat specific that we also have as resources that we try to find. We don't always find them. It's good to know, what is and isn't. And if we don't find those resources, we also help to make that available to our emergency management partners and other people who could probably solve those problems too. So it's almost as important to make sure we highlight those gaps too. So just a little additional kind of detail behind the scene for you.
Yeah, absolutely. What should we do if we run into an emergency, especially during this upcoming heat wave?
Got 911. If it's an emergency and your life's on the line, definitely call your emergency services, 911. If you don't need to deal with it immediately, but let's say you're on dialysis, oxygen, things like that, there are some resources that 211 can help alleviate for the overload when it comes to like calling emergency services. So behind that, those are the kinds of things that we can help deal with as well.
Yeah, I remember a couple of months ago, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think I want to ask you about the flooding that we had across the state not long ago, where 211 was a huge resource for some of the folks impacted by that, especially up in Newaygo County. Can you talk about the resources you guys helped in that front, too? Because I know a lot of people were impacted by flooding, too.
Yeah, and it's about bringing in other resources. We talked that we use that word a lot, but it's about finding partners. We had a partnership with Airbnb, so we helped find some people some housing that way if they were displaced. It's identifying those gaps, as I mentioned. So if you have a damaged home, if it was flooded and you needed some support, you couldn't do it on your own. Your insurance didn't cover things. There are volunteer groups that we work with that we're partnered with. So, it's kind of like triaging, right? Problem solving of what you need immediately. If it's sheltering, if you need to clean up your home, if you have some damage to, we mentioned, food, but like clothing, those are the kind of resources that we kind of work through in times of flooding. So it was a busy month, and a declaration that's coming through here too from federal government. So depending on where you live in the area, make sure that you're paying attention. And if you don't understand what's going on, or if you need some more detail, call 211.
All right. Well, Chad, we appreciate that. We've got about 20 seconds before we let you go. Just kind of run down how people can get in contact with you guys. Obviously, dialing 211 is going to be like your main rule of thumb. But again, run through the number for the text line and then also how we can chat online with you guys, too.
Yep, 898-211 is the text line. And if you want to go to a website, it's mi211.org.
All right. Chad Vieser, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.